Okay, so we're recording now, and welcome to our first little, hey Julie, our little pod call. And Aviva and Marley should be here. I imagine they'll hop on soon. So what I wanted to do after we just did our little grounding is to generally what I do on these calls is just open it up to questions about your business, and then I just like give everybody the coaching that they need, and we'll give you assignments if you need them. If you have like what do I do now questions, this is like a great time for that. And we just basically do that the whole time. It's totally driven by your needs. And what I find magically happens is that most of the time what one person asks is usually relevant, at least to some extent, for the other folks. So at least to start with, I'm not going to divide up the time into these exact little slots. We'll do it a little more fluidly. It works, and if it's working fine like this in the other pod. If we need to do it differently, we can. But it's more like a trust in the flow of like, if something's being talked about and you actually have something that is related to that, like it's a good time to ask that question, and we can be in a little more of a conversation rather than everybody gets their 10 minutes. But if you're like, being like, oh my God, I have this big question, I want to make sure I ask it, like definitely say that, like you can say it in the chat, you can say it out loud. So I want everybody to, have the chance to get their questions answered. But we'll naturally get into some conversations. And then some things will be quick. So that's a little bit about process. Hi, Aviva. And I just sort of explain the process. Maybe go back and listen to the very beginning of this. But what I normally do is just open it up now for like content coaching questions. But what I want to do first is open it up for like programmatic questions, like questions about what we're doing here, and like resources or calls, or like what do I that kind of stuff, like logistics. So I just wanted to open up the floor for that for a little while, and to make sure that everybody feels like oriented and what's going on, and then we'll dive into like actual coaching on your businesses. And then just also knowing that we're still in the very beginning. I've met with some of you privately. I'm meeting with the rest of you either tomorrow or next week. I think Aviva, you still need to sign up for your private. Yeah. And then, so that'll, the beginning, we have a lot of different touch points, and, things are always a little more chaotic in the beginning, but if it feels that way, it will settle into place. And so I just want to see though what questions you have around the program and the process before we jump in. So anything around that?
I don't think I've gone through everything. I just saw sort of you wanted us to look in at module 3. So that kind of goes along with what you had said from the beginning, that it's not like it's all linear, that there's times where you're like, because I haven't looked at module 1 or 2.
That's because module 1 and 2 are happen on the retreat. They're not really, that's like a little bit of a, yeah. So module 3 is actually the business model module. So it's just the one to start with, to do before we have our first meeting. And you don't need to have figured out your business model. I just want you to have the background so that, we can have the conversation from the same place.
All right. I'll book for next week, so I have some time this weekend to tease things apart.
Cool. Yeah.
Quick question is, actually, because we're now a pod that we're going to be together for the next 6 months, maybe it would be useful, because I have a terrible memory and I don't remember exactly what everyone's specific career or what, if you wanted your niche statement, or, but it would be wonderful just to do a quick wraparound of, either. I would love to hear a niche statement, actually, because that's so along our lines. So something like that.
Sure. Yeah. Or like, I think a lot of people are here to figure out what that is, but so I don't want to stress people out about that, but yeah, totally. As soon as we're done answering logistical questions, let's do another round of intros. Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Bridget.
I saw Melanie's email about scheduling our future dates with you, and just curious do you want us to schedule those all now, not quite knowing when to do it, just kind of guess and space them out, or what do you think?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's like a little bit of a balance between, hey Marley, we're just like answering logistical questions about the program before we dive into everything. So
okay,
that's where
sweet.
we're at.
Yeah, sorry for being late. I had a presentation that went over.
It's okay. Okay, so should you book them all in advance or do them as you go? I would say book them in advance and then change it if it really doesn't feel like the right moment, just because it's easier to get them on the calendar. And I want you to have the first 3 done in the first 3 months, and I want people to use them. Like sometimes people like save their private sessions for this moment when I'm like, no, it's always a good idea to like just do that. And then if you really feel like, oh, I'm great this week, I really would rather postpone it, then like just you can go in and change it. So that's a way to do it. You could also, just and you'll also get a better time. You'll get more of a time that you want on my schedule. Because I don't have like loads and loads of, I don't work loads and loads of hours. So there's just limited hours because kiddo. So yeah.
Great.
Any other, Alicia.
I'm sure this will be like more clear after I meet with you the first time, and I know we're just kind of, maybe different people are in different places, but just at the beginning, I mean, I did the module 3, but it just kind of like, I'm sure later on I'll have like more specific questions about my business, but I'm just like our first few calls, just wondering like what kinds of questions when I'm not so sure, on even the model yet, might be like helpful for these sessions.
Yeah. I mean, like for this first call, like because it's all very new, it's like you can just bring something that's up in your business right now that you're curious about, and I can almost guarantee you it will lead to then the right next move for you is to like start working on the niching module. So we'll just, for today in particular, since you're not like haven't like dived in yet fully, we'll just go with what's up, and then it'll become more apparent like once we've had that first session. And basically everybody's gonna like do that initial business model education and then start on the next module, which is like getting way more clear on your niche. Like I don't think there's one person here necessarily, except for maybe Julie. We'll talk in our meeting. You're pretty niche clear, I think, but most people will be just diving right into module 5. And so if you're, a question you could even ask today, if there's nothing else up, is like just talking about who your ideal client is and what you've been thinking about in that realm, because that's where we're all gonna start. So yeah, is that helpful?
Yes, thanks.
Cool. All right. Okay, cool. Well, then let's do another. I mean, you can always ask more questions. And let's do a quick new round of introduction. So I want a quick celebration, something that you're excited about since the retreat that's happened in your business. And small or big. When I ask for celebrations, it can be like the tiniest little like internal shift, or it can be like, I just landed a $10,000 client, like whatever, like just it's all welcome. So a little celebration, your name, your business, and a little celebration or a big celebration. And then we can dive into coaching. So, and whoever wants to go first, go for it. Great, Jessica.
My name is Jessica. I'm a naturopathic physician. I have a private practice in Washington. Celebration. I'm really trying to seal up leaks. I'm really aware of the leaks and motivated to seal them up, so I have more time. And I'm also really feeling an internal shift working with patients. Like for me, I'm in this place of having this new vision, and I'm not sure how to, logistically wanting support, but I can like feel that new vision as I'm working with people and feeling boundaries that I really want to continue to cultivate and set. So after our call last week, there were like 2 really cool days of just like, ooh, feeling good.
Awesome. Great.
Mhm.
That's awesome to hear. Thank you. Yeah. And saying where you're based out of is a great thing to add to that too. Yes, Aviva, go for it.
An actual hand raise, not the little thing at the bottom. Okay. So Aviva Shira Burnett. I'm in Ojai, which if people don't know, that's about an hour and a half north of LA, not far from Santa Barbara. We are having beautiful rain, which we need here in the drought, and it's great for being inside. My business, so I talked to Julie extensively about it. I really wear multiple hats. And so for me, this year is going to be about really clarifying the languaging and my ideal clients, and still being able to wear hats, because my niche is really that, and my expertise is that I'm a bridge between different worlds of healing. Like I've done all the Western side for years, like multiple degrees and sort of board certifications, and also deep into Eastern and nutritional. And I'm a therapist and energy healer. And I love that. Like that's the why. So needing to just start to tease it apart of like, as I'm still doing consultations for integrative holistic, and also still doing that one-on-one ongoing work with the energy healing, which is a lot around the why at that deeper level. Like it's that place of mindset and the deeper blocks, like really working at the body level in that deep way energetically, but also in people's life path. So that's my niche. I still work in a lot of ways to bring in my income. So work Western, and a lot of great shifts since the retreat, and even since last week. I can see how Marley had written out all the tabs. Oh my God, like not tabs. The one on my bathroom mirror, fucking awesome. Like I can feel it when I read, I am safe, I am held, I have everything I need. Everything calms down, because that's even related to sealing up the leaks. It's like, I'm really good with boundaries with people, but I can see where suddenly money comes up, and that might bring up my fear, and that like I'll allow a push. And so I've already been seeing boundaries, like someone bring in an opportunity, and I'm like, we really need to clarify the finances. I said, I'm very interested, even as opposed to me jumping in. And then yeah, a win. I sat and I've started to look at my finances, if you guys remember that one. So I went through a whole month, and I'm going to keep doing it, so I know exactly what's going out. That was big, and I'm reading the books, and we're going to start the book club soon.
Yeah, awesome.
So I'm loving that. So it's a lot around money, but all good shifts.
Great.
And
awesome.
it even helped me clarify how to look for where I'm going to live next. Because once I figured out what I'm not going to do and where I am going to focus, then I could really be like, okay, this is what's right. So it's made a lot of clarity in a lot of areas.
Awesome. Thanks. Cool. Who's next? Yes, Bridget.
Hi, Bridget Somene, naturopathic doctor in Santa Rosa, California. And celebrations, closing up the week. I was on a session with Jessica last week, and we were working on our patient portal templates, and it was so great, and I'm using them now. So yeah, I'm just feeling a lot more organized, and I'm stoked about that. And working on niche, but what I'm feeling into is brain, stress, gut health, and how those all kind of intersect.
Awesome. Thank you. Who's next? Don't be shy. Yeah, Alicia.
I'm having a little freezing with my Zoom, so hopefully it will be okay. But I'm Alicia from Muir Beach in the North Bay, and I'm an expressive arts therapist and psychotherapist, and right now I'm seeing all individual clients. And most of my niche mainly is working on body positive, body liberation, and connection, supportive and healing relationship to body and food and disordered eating and relationships, kind of thing. Mostly women, and a celebration is like, I just felt like my mind was like, oh my God, after the retreat and everything, like just so many ahas and like a paradigm shift, and I think Brianna was saying this too, like the more clarity you have in your business, that your clients feel it. And I really did feel that this week, like I was more grounded and clear, and so many of these things that we're working on is so much part of what my clients are working on, that parallel process of boundaries and, closing leaks. So I, just really feeling that. And I'm wanting to move more into programs and more small retreat, half-day retreats and at the beach, and which, not diversifying, not just doing individual sessions. So yeah, and really using nature to nourish in the half-day retreats.
Awesome. Yay, thank you.
Alicia, would you be doing those at an incredible house of yours?
I would be, yes. Yeah. Maybe sometime when we can see each other, we could, for the local people, we could come here.
Yeah, I think the local folks should meet at your beach.
Yeah.
When we can do that safely.
Yeah.
Awesome. Jen?
So I am a holistic and collaborative interior designer that likes to align people's values with their spaces. So bringing your values to life is my niche, if you will. And what I've realized is that I really enjoy the upfront concept part of interior design and really helping people identify their authenticity. And so I've been working with Julie on putting together a more results-based package. We were talking about that at the retreat, of instead of hourly, which is very typical for interior design because people make decisions in different ways and so forth. But I have to say my biggest celebration, I'm in San Rafael, by the way, in California. And my biggest celebration happened this morning, which was, I have a lot of money issues with my dad. And like Brianna, just like her directness at the retreat really kind of kicked off my like, oh, this is where it's coming from. This is where I don't feel safe. And I always had so much shame in talking to my dad about it. And I just had a really honest conversation with him. And it was just like, I can't even believe like the amount of walls that just kind of came down in just being really upfront about it. And it was great. So that was a big win for me today. And I think I said from the retreat, I've raised my rates. I put together this package and I signed my first client already. So things are going pretty well.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Thanks.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Marley.
Yeah, I'll go. This is my intern summit. I'm Marley. I live in Portland, Oregon. And I am a leadership, confidence, and mindset coach for visionary women entrepreneurs. That's my jam in the world. And yeah, some wins. I had a client sign on and pay in full this week to work with me for another 3 months, and it just was like kind of like a great affirmation and a nice influx of cash into the system, which was awesome. And it's just such a great opportunity to like hit the reset button of like what she needs moving forward, because we've worked together for 3 months and we're going to keep working together. And so that was nice. And I've just been speaking a lot. Like I had a presentation right before here, and I've mapped all, like I have like 15 speaking engagements between January and February online. And so it's just kind of cool. The challenge is the focus part, because they're all on different topics.
Okay.
To different audiences. But it's like, so it's a celebration and it's also an invitation.
Mm-hmm.
Something to look at, of like me being the say yes to everything person. versus like, what do I need to start saying no to create more focus in my life?
Awesome.
That's me.
Awesome. Thank you. Cool. Julie?
Yeah. Didn't sleep much last night. Sorry, I'm a little not focused right now. I would say I made a deep commitment to having rest and downtime. And there's a way that I've just committed to making that happen. And this Sunday, I got in bed at 3:30 and really gave myself space to have my grief and be with myself and not write my newsletter. Like for days, I was going to write this message and I couldn't. Alicia sent me this podcast on being from Krista Tippett and Catherine May's book Wintering, which is all about what this whole group is about, and Julie, what you teach. And I woke up and wrote this newsletter that I got a lot of amazing feedback from people, just like from a place of rest and letting go. And like, I literally just woke up and first draft, my assistant usually really tweaks and really changes everything I do and cuts it back. And she was like, it's great, it's beautiful. And, so there's some way of like just less effort, trusting, letting myself have non-work time and crying time and resting time as a way of informing what I'm doing. And I'm teaching Friday. I decided to teach a class based on that and from that place. And, a dozen people signed up right away. And I'm just feeling like I'm just in my mode of being inward as I'm re-entering.
That's amazing. Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Wow. When like there's more fruitfulness that comes from actually just surrendering to the rest. I get that. Yeah. So many examples of that. I mean, you have to keep learning it, right? Like really I can rest, and then really it is going to be okay. Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. Cool. Well, welcome again, everybody. So we'll shift into just like regular Q&A. And for folks who weren't here at the very beginning, one thing is don't worry if you don't feel like totally ready with a question, like I haven't met with all of you yet privately, just you can ask whatever's up in your business right now. It'll be useful. And then number 2 is that I don't like set the timer and say everybody gets 7 minutes. We do it in more like of a flow. And so one thing is like, so that it can be a little more of a conversation. So if there's something that you have a question on that someone else asked, we can be in that topic for a little bit and shift around. But there's two things to make that work. One is that if there's something that you really want to make sure you get your question in, and you feel like, I don't know, maybe there's right toward the end, like just make sure you pipe up, say something, or put your name in the chat. Like I have something. And then also to be mindful of your, of how much time you're taking and like who's gone, so that we're all kind of, in this flow of like that everybody gets to have their needs met. And of course, there's sometimes when you're going to have like a big thing and we're going to spend more time on it, and someone else is going to be like, yeah, I don't really have much today, this little question, right? So it all balances out. But it's just having an awareness of that. And it's always a good idea if you're like, I have something super big and important, like just pop it in the chat. We'll make sure that we like start with that. So with that, I would like to open up the floor for, Slack. Okay. Okay, I'll give guidance on Slack and then we can dive in. So there's some guidance on Slack on the private page. It has like the basics about how to use Slack. Did you see that piece? Okay. The other thing is like, if you want my attention, totally just tag me, just do at Julie. You'll get to know more like when to at Caitlin or Casey, but usually just at both of them, because they kind of tag team, but Casey's actually the one that's in Slack more, just so you know. But if it's marketing and branding related, go to them. If you're like designing a program or you're doing the roots, like that's more me. But you can also just tag all 3 of us. That's fine. So the other, of course, and then everybody else can, if you have the capacity, like comment, great. That's what it's for, right? It's awesome if you can give feedback, and then you get feedback. but don't feel like, oh my God, I have to like comment on everybody's thing all the time. Like, don't let it be overwhelming. It's awesome when you have the capacity to sit in there for 10-15 minutes and look and give feedback. It's super appreciated. Then people do it for you too, and that's great. But if you're in like crazy busy work week and you're like, I can't deal with Slack right now, like whatever, it's fine. You don't need to be on Slack like for anything really. Like if it's a really important announcement, we'll email you about it. So that's one thing. There's different channels. So like what we might post, we have like a goals channel. So once a week we'll say, hey, what are your big priorities for the week? And you can put them in there and be witnessed. Totally optional. You'll see. It's just easiest. Like if you have a question about, that's marketing specific, put it in the marketing channel. It's not necessary, but that makes it easier for Caitlin and Casey. The other thing is I was talking with the other pod this morning about Slack, and they were like, they've been in a group together for a while. You all are going to be in a group together. One of them said, I just don't want to feel bad if I don't tag the entire group, and I might just tag our little pod because that's who I'm used to getting feedback from. And I just was like, full permission to do that. And I'll tell this group so nobody feels like left out, but you can do that too, right? Because you're going to know the inner workings of each other's businesses a little bit better. So, if you want feedback from this group, like you can tag the people in this small group and not tag everybody, or you can just put it out there and whoever sees it will respond. And then one trick with Slack is if you're like, think you're missing something, just go to on the side, it says unread. You click unread, it'll show you all the things that you haven't seen. So, and you can also search Slack. Yeah, Julie.
Sorry, just is it like the Facebook Redwood Circle group where like, will we see everyone's questions like if we want, or do you only see it if you're tagged?
It's all totally public. So you will see everything, and depending on your notification settings, like I put Slack in my dock, like at the very bottom of my Mac here, so I can see the little symbol. And when anything shows up, a little red dot comes there. So I'm like, oh, something's in Slack.
Okay.
So you can just, but you can set it to just only ping you when you have a message, or only ping you when you're mentioned. But yeah, it's all public. But if you want to private message me through Slack, like if there's something you want me to look at that's like, like a money thing, you don't feel like sharing your money chart with the whole group, like you can private message me that, like in Slack. That's also totally cool. So you can private message anybody in Slack.
But we're with also the pod one too, the other pod.
Yeah,
too.
we're all the coaches and the whole crew is in Slack together. Yeah.
Great.
And if you did want like feedback on some copywriting, or like, is it better to put the copy directly in Slack so it's read in Slack, or is it better to put a link to a doc that's kind of open to people to edit? Like how do you get that feedback?
Yeah, I thought we had some guidance on the private page about that, but I will look again and make sure, because that's an important one. If you have something short, just put it right in Slack. If it's like this niche statement or that niche statement, or it's like a short message thing, just write in Slack is better. If you're wanting feedback on copy, if it's like a page, it's easier to put in a Google Doc. And then just know, like, we're happy to give like copy coaching on shorter documents, like a page. If you're like redoing your whole website and you've got tons of copy, that might be something to like either divide it up so you're not like giving us 10 zillion pages at once, or you can also like work with Casey and Caitlin to like, they can do like more serious copy editing if you want, like, more on that. And it also depends like what kind of feedback you're looking for. If you're just like wanting a buddy in the group to like, hey, can you just read this over? How's it sounding? Versus like you want like very specific like feedback from me or Casey on messaging, you know what I mean? So just be really clear in your request about what you're looking for and who you're wanting to comment on it.
Julia, is the next is the retreat the 14th and 15th of April?
Yeah.
Okay. And is it just us or all of us?
It's all of you.
Okay.
Yeah, and all of you on the Brianna calls, all of you on the marketing calls, but just us in the calls with me.
Okay.
And is that a retreat that we can share with non-nourished people, like the way Replenish was? Do you want other people invited? Because people were already like, tell me when she's doing something next. When I was like, this is great. And I'm doing it. And people have seen that I'm like, I have not wanted to sign up for something like this for a long time. So they're like, I just didn't know if it was open.
Yeah, maybe. I'll keep you posted. I'm still figuring a couple things out.
Okay.
All right. Okay, Slack, you'll get used to it. It's like a little bit, so there's like, it's not, there's some reasons Facebook is better, but overall, I really like want it to be able to take Facebook breaks. And I know that other people want to be able to take Facebook breaks. And so that was like our main purpose in finding a different mode for connecting. So if you ever feel ignored on Slack, don't take it personally, just retag, because it can be a lot. Yeah. I try to go every day in there and like look and see where I'm tagged. Okay, so who has a question about their business? Yeah, Jen, go for it.
There we go. So I did put it in Slack, and it was something that we said if we had time to do today, that would be great. So this is
right.
It's in share your stuff in Slack, and it was kind of that follow up, trying to figure out what my follow up is. Like once you sell something, right? I'm a wordy person, and so I want to try to become a little bit more like succinct in what I'm saying, and also the information I'm trying to give them. And so we talked a little bit about what that follow up would look like, but I was hoping to get a little feedback on the actual email that I'm going to send to him, and if I should pare it down more, organize it in a better way. Love to hear kind of your feedback on that, and after initial sale, like we can kind of.
It's like your welcome email. Like, hey, you're in. Here's the next steps. Okay.
Right.
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna just like look at it as we're talking. For other people, if you want to look in Slack, like Jen said, it's in the share your stuff. By the way, just so you know, another Slack clarification, there are explanations of each channel if you click on it, but share your stuff is more like, hey, tell your friends I'm selling this thing, or I'm doing this class, I want people to come, or like, oh my God, I just saw this like episode about this. It's like more like promo-ish or promoting other people. If you want feedback on like your basic coaching questions, just put it in general support. Or if it's marketing specific, you can put it in marketing. So it's fine. I mean, obviously I still see it, but it's that's what that one's intended for. Okay, so so to continue our work. You know, the word expectations to me signifies like kind of what you're expecting from him, whereas what you're actually sharing is like the deliverables, you know, like what they're going to get, what he's going to get. Let's see. So yeah, I think this is great. It's not necessary to do any additional work.
Jen, do you want to cut and paste it into the chat for those of us who aren't on Slack so we can?
Thank you. Yeah, I was trying to figure out how to do that best for you guys. Sure.
Yeah, you won't be able to paste all of it at once because there's a limit to the characters. I think this is great. You know, I would, just to be like super friendly and, you know, in the beginning, I might say, you know, I look forward to continuing our work, our consultations on this date. And then you can say, okay, here's everything you need to know, or here's what to expect. And then you might just do it in order, like here are your next steps. First, let's take care of payment. You know, second, here is what you know, I'm going to want you to do. Then I'm going to send you this form, right? Like just make it kind of, I think chronological might be helpful. And then follow-up material. What does follow-up material mean? Is that what you're going to send them?
Yes, because I just referred to it in the previous
Oh, I
statement.
see. Yeah, I mean, like I would give it a name, call it like just so it's clear, like the design questionnaire or the pre-session questionnaire. Like just be really clear about what that is and just name it. Yeah, I think you could shorten this section and just say, like you already say it's not necessary to do, you could just say like you're invited to do this optional stuff beforehand. I found that clients but of course it's totally optional, because you know, like of course the COVID blurs days, like you kind of say again that you know he doesn't really have to do it. Just say it once, like here it is, it's optional but it's helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, or do what resonates and with you and leave the rest. Yeah, and then you got your policies. Yeah, great. Yeah, I think I would just shorten up that one section and make it chronological. So the whole thing with like welcome emails and stuff like that, it's like this is like part of your onboarding process. So first of all, at some point you can automate that, right? So what you could set up ultimately is somebody agrees to it. They're like, cool, we're going to do your thing. You send them a payment link, and then that sets off a automatic welcome email that tells them everything else that they need, right? So you can get to that later, but it's whether it's automated or not, it's super important to be thinking about like, oh hey, what's my client's first experience after saying yes, and making sure that they've got everything they need. Like, I mean, obviously I created this like whole private resources page, right? And so my email's quick. It's like all the info's here, right? And then you head over to that. That's obviously another way to do it, but not for this thing that you're doing, that you don't need to do that. This is like totally great.
Okay, perfect. This is really helpful, because what I'd like to do is like kind of cut and paste this into my standard operating procedures, so that it's like, oh, okay, the next person to have it, okay, change the name, do.
Cool. Yeah, and I think it's simpler to have them pay first and say, hey, great, here, thanks, so glad you're in. Just do this payment link, and then you'll get a welcome email with everything you need to know to blankety blank.
Okay.
And then it's like out of your hands, and you're not bugging them. You know, it's like they have to pay in order to do.
I like that. And just because I used to do checks or bank transfers, and I have QuickBooks, I just never really wanted to pay. But now that my offerings are getting to a higher point, I'm more willing to pay.
Yeah.
And it, you know, the professional aspect of it. So when you say providing a payment link, is that like I would send them the QuickBooks invoice to pay? Is that, or
yeah, one way is to send an invoice. The other way is, you know, do folks here, most of you have PayPal or something similar, like where you can go, actually, I have something called WooCommerce on my website. There's all different payment systems, right? But in PayPal, for example, which is what most people have, PayPal Business, you can go in there and like create a product that costs $800 and is called this. And it gives you a link, and you just send them that link and they click.
Okay.
And pay it from there. So you can also put that right on your website. That's how people do that. But yeah, invoices are fine too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. Cool. What else?
I was just wondering too, Jen, like if it, like sometimes if it's helpful to like say like little like bullet points, or like this is what you need to do next, this, and this, and then have like longer descriptions. Because sometimes if someone's really busy, they see a lot of text and they're like, I don't even know. And so like if they say like, okay, I got this covered and I'll read this later, if that would be helpful too.
Yes. Thank you for saying that. Yes. And also, speaking of which, feel free to be adding your own voice in here. I didn't say that, but you're all welcome to respond in the chat or with your voice to what other folks are saying. So thank you, Alicia. I totally agree. You could make the summary at the top, more details at the bottom, or at the very least, like boldface the like action items. So it's like they could just scan and see like, boom, 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 this is what I need to do. Yeah, cool.
Can I ask a question, just what you were related to?
Yeah.
That the kind of automatize, systematizing, particularly since I did what I needed for my small private practice back when, but part of the vision for the year, I'm really taking in the questions like on the financial thing, there's certain things that are good for really small businesses, but to have a vision for scaling, each of these, because I used to just use Square and I had the different products. So if it was a new consult, I sent them that. If it was just an individual session, but I haven't been using that for a while. So I'm just wondering if there are ones that you think are good that are good to start small and scale, or of these different, like you were talking about your system, the financial side for sending invoices or for payment.
Right. I mean, PayPal Business will take you pretty far, honestly. Like, it does recurring, it does subscriptions, and it does products. So like, just having, even if you have a handful of links and they're at your fingertips and somebody needs to pay, and you or your assistant can just like send them the link, like or the link appears on your website, right? Then that's easy, and it will last quite a while. The reason I switched to WooCommerce, and it wasn't even really switching, WooCommerce is like a plugin for WordPress websites that make it so you can brand your product so it looks like the rest of your website. It uses PayPal on the back end. I still have PayPal Business. WooCommerce makes it pretty. So like when you click to pay for this, it was like on a page that looked like my website, right?
Got it.
It's like a $200 plugin. It's not even that big of a deal, but when they redid my website, we're like, let's do this. It looks nice. So yeah.
I wonder why, like, so I use Squarespace, and all my products are on Squarespace. And I can individualize the intake form about what info I want from people when they buy something. And I just wonder why you, Julie, chose to use PayPal and not products on your website. Or is that what you just described? That
No, I now use products on my website.
Okay.
For a long time, I used PayPal. Well, you know how like when you have a PayPal button, it's like, it looks like a PayPal button, right? And so for a long time, that was fine. And I just made it the color, whatever. And people clicked and they bought. And then when I had my site redesigned, we were just like, let's make it match.
Yeah. I really like having the products on my website. It's
nice. It looks nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not a necessity, but it looks nice.
And just out of curiosity, do you find that as far as the percentages that they take, they're pretty much all the same?
It's still the same as it's the PayPal percentages. The WooCommerce is just like a thing I paid for once. It's a WordPress plugin. So I paid, or maybe I pay annually for that or something. And then it's whatever the PayPal fees are. So yeah. Yeah, I'm getting into the nitty gritty here from the start. I'm totally cool with all of it. Cool. Any other question about onboarding? Yeah, Alicia and Bridget.
It's not on onboarding, so if someone has
okay,
a new thing.
Okay, cool. So then, yeah, Alicia and then Bridget on other topics.
Yeah. I guess this is just kind of a general topic about how to go from individual, like, so now I see only individual clients and therapy clients. And I'm wanting to have, the first step maybe is like a 3-hour, like half-day retreat where we are in nature and using more expressive arts and ritual and yoga and around a theme, like maybe even seasonally, or if they bring in a theme, just to go, I want to go deeper, I want to work in nature. And I eventually was thinking, like, could create a program, that could include seasonal, maybe some individual sessions, seasonal, kind of these deeper individual retreats, and then maybe even have a day long, like that a group or a day long that other people come to that they would be part of in a retreat. So I'm starting to envision, like what could be a program too. But I think that my questions are like, even just going from like how to go from like individual to thinking about even a program, and even that you talked about, like that you can make more money, like just, and how does that kind of work?
How does that work? Yeah.
Yeah, and I know this is a lot, but I was just thinking, like sometimes therapists feel like maybe I might need to talk to some other therapists who are doing this, but ethically, like that sometimes people don't like to do packages and programs as therapists because they may think like, well, what they may not need that work, or there's just some ethical things. So then I'm wondering, should I have like even two separate websites, you know, with individual and like my nature retreats, and had so those are kinds of things that I'm just
those are the things swimming. Yeah, totally. I'll answer the second one quickly first, which is, it's a really complex question, but what I will say about it is, and this comes up for naturopaths too, like group work, you know, treatment plans, can people pay in advance? Can I be a doctor with these people? Can I be a therapist with? So there does have to be some separation if you're doing, you don't necessarily have to have a separate business, but you do at some point, you might want to talk to an actual lawyer who works on this stuff. I have a referral of somebody, like when it gets to that point where you need it, about like, what is the coaching aspect? I'm calling it coaching for lack of a better term, but like the non-therapy side of your business. And then like you can keep your private practice looking like a private practice, and then it's very obvious that's where you're being a therapist. And then you can have a program where of course you're bringing your therapy skills to the table, but you're not like doing therapy in that particular way. You're not calling it therapy. Right. And so when we design a program for you, like when you design a program, like you probably can't do like, if let's say you had a group program, you probably can't do private therapy sessions as part of a group, not therapy program, right? You could do individual sessions, but that's where you'd have to be careful, right? So you do need some separation there. Some people start new websites. A lot of people don't. Some people end up letting go of their therapy licenses eventually so they can just whatever, not worry about it. But I've seen it go like all different ways. But that's the short answer of that. But we'll just be mindful as you're designing the program, like what to integrate and what words to use and not use. And you know how your licensing people are. So, and then the other question is like, it's this kind of big quick picture question of like, you know, how do you go from, you know, like having like a successful thriving business of one-on-one hour for hour things, but like shifting business models, like how does that actually work? So when you go from hour to hour to like a one-on-one program, so like what you just described is, you know, something like, okay, you have an opening immersive session in nature with this person. They have a couple sessions a month that are, you know, on Zoom, and you give them assignments to do art, and they culminates with a day-long ceremony with you at the beach or whatever, right? And you design this 3-month experience, right? And then what people are paying for in that case isn't therapy. They're not paying for like the process of therapy. They're paying for like whatever you decide the point of that program is, like transform your relationship with your body and eating. And you're not like pricing it every minute you put in, dollar out, right? You're looking at like, okay, I found these people that really want this particular result, and you're specializing in that, and you're making a program specifically for these people. So it's like a higher value thing just because of the special nature of it. And then you can kind of like add things in, like if you're teaching a workshop, you can throw that in for free and it adds value, but it's no more work for you. Or you have homework assignments, you create them once and then you have those to, right? Or you add in a little email support. And so you can add these things that increase the value, and you can charge more for it because they're getting more, they're held in your container, all these like awesome things. So you end up getting paid more for a program than you would for like hour for hour, you know, like you do as a therapist. So that's the idea behind like doing a program instead of the one-on-one sessions. And the program, like to be really clear, there's benefits in terms of saving time and making more money and having a bigger impact on the client, right? Because they're committed and they're in, and you making more No, and you being on more on purpose, right? So there's like all sorts of like really awesome reasons to shift your work into that. And so that's the first step. And then once you've done that with a handful of people or 10 people or 20 people, then you're like, oh, I'm starting to see how I could do this for a group of 5 people or 10 people. You know, you start to see the patterns with people, and that's how you make a group program. Like, I wouldn't even say to like jump in and do a group program if you have not ever done that and you're still kind of like do a few practice ones with one-on-one and then turn it into a group. And then in the meantime, you could do a short group workshop just to like practice being in the vibe of like facilitating a group, right? So that would be a way to kind of, you know, be experimenting it so you could move toward having a group go through your process.
Right.
And the Roots of Business is like designed to help you create that program that could then turn into a group program. Does that make sense?
That's very helpful. Yeah. And exciting I have already done some one-on-ones, a couple of those, 2 or 3 of those. So I'm starting to get ready for the next step. But that really helps delineate it. And I like things I think that's where my creativity comes into, because I love designing things. I love designing programs.
So fun.
And I also do I could do guided imagery recordings on Body Image, and I have just like, that's the excitement too, where my creativity could come in too. And it's not sitting so many people in one kind of energy that can be exhausting too.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Cool. Julie. Thank you, Lisa. Oh, was this on this topic?
Oh,
because Bridget had her hand up, but if it's on this topic, go for it.
yeah, just one thing. Alicia just redid her website, and I think it's beautiful. And I see the workshops there, and I also have I could see the 8-week workshop thing. It's already on your website as not as in-depth thing, but like as another stepping point, like what Julie said, of like experiencing facilitating a group and just feeling into a group experience.
Mm-hmm.
I just, when I saw that as a midpoint, as one of the, but I have too many offerings, so maybe I'm not giving you good advice.
It's helpful.
We'll drill down into that in our whenever our one-on-one is to like, as far as like how many offers, and I'm always on the side of like fewer, because
that's really helpful. And I kind of did a little like a whole little visual diagram, like of all the things I'm interested in, and then prioritize, but this is what I'm starting with, and this is next, and this is next. And it just helps me because I'm such a visual whole person thinker. So I have to get it all out, and then I have to take it piece by piece.
Yeah. Awesome. And also knowing that like, okay, this is a thing I want to do, and it might take 2-3 years to get to that. But in the meantime, I'm going to do this, and this. But like, there's a spot for that. You haven't like forgotten about it.
Yeah. Thank you. That's really helpful.
Awesome.
I wanted to offer a link because you were talking about the therapist, like the licensure, regulation kinds of things, and having it all. Not mine, because my website's down, but my sister, who's been a licensed therapist for 30 some odd years, and then added in the energetic healing piece, which then has its own licensing thing. And then we had workshops with ancestral and bloodline healing. And now she and I have a training program. So I send everybody to her site, but I could send you the link so you could see how she developed from her Psychology Today, her private practice. And of course we had to, there's different boundaries, licensure wise, but also client, when people sign up for those programs, but it really ended up being quite a clear, smooth transition. But I can send you her link because she's amazing on just all the regulatory kinds of things.
Well, yeah, it's all workable. It's just you do have to be aware of it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Aviva. Cool. Bridget, yeah.
Okay, so this kind of refers to the email you sent me, and what I think I just heard you say to Alicia too is, in the email you referred to the Roots of Business, like that's one of my goals, Roots of Business. And I'm wondering, is there like a module that's associated with that, or it's like I'm supposed to do all this other stuff and then we'll get to that?
The Roots of Business is modules 5 through 8. So the first one's me, and then message, and then framework, and then offer. And all of you are going to get started on, I think all of you, let me look at you again, Julie, we got to check in, but Jen, you're pretty darn clear on yours too. So here's the thing. We can talk like individually about what's next for each of you, but most of you will jump in and do module 5 and start working on clarifying your niche. And then just like warning that I have to give to everyone. So the modules are awesome and very in-depth, and I've been honing them and using them for years, and they're super helpful. And the niching one in particular, people can get overwhelmed because there's a lot of questions. So guess what? You're lucky because you're not doing an online course. So you don't actually have to like complete every word of these things, right? Like you can look at it and see what's useful and get yourself thinking about it. And then if you get stuck, you can just be like, ask in the Slack group, like, hey, this is what I'm thinking for my who. How does this sound? Right. And then you can even just toss into the group. This is what I think my what is. Does this sound right? And I'll just ask you some questions. I'll just coach you in there. So if you're like a module person and you're like, oh, I want to like dig into this and like really, yeah, this is my bag. Like I want to do this. Great. If you're like, oh my God, this is too much and it's overwhelming, like read it over, see what you're aiming for, take a shot at like just creating a niche statement, and then like toss it into the group or ask me in one of these calls or in a private call, and we'll work it through. There's no reason to get like stuck in a module, especially that one, because niching is the trickiest part. And that's why the module is the longest, because I used to have like an online-ish version of that, but you don't, it's like, it's there for a resource. It's not there because it's like your assignment. You have to do it from start to finish.
Okay, so just start with 5 and keep working my way through it down to 8.
And then for you, Bridget, like, so here's an interesting nuance. Like, this is what I'd asked you as that follow-up right to our session, which is, so right now you're kind of like a naturopath, and whatever people are presenting with, like they can come in, right? And then you're talking about designing a program for a particular group of people who are the people that are that have stress related, like gut or other autoimmune issues that they need to deal with, right? Like that they need to calm the stress. I'm just sort of saying this out loud too for other people, like calm the stress so that they don't get the flare up or whatever it is that happens. And so that's a very specific niche, right? And I'd love for you to focus on that niche when you're doing the roots of business, because that's the program that like we're aiming toward you kind of getting off the ground. That said, what I also want you to do, like as kind of a separate goal, is like, I would love to see updates to your website that would include some more specificity of at least like, if you're not going to focus your entire business on those people, which it's too premature, like for you to just like be like, yes, this is it. I'm only treating these people, right? Like you barely started that process. But to have, as you start to write your point of view statement, which is the second module, the module 6, you're going to start to have more language to put on your site that's going to help people understand more about who you are, why you do the work the way you do, the kind of person you want to attract. And you could list out like your top 3 to 5 specialties that you really love working with the most, right? You don't have to turn away clients who come to you for other stuff, but it's really just like, what are you putting outwardly toward the world, right? So so you're going to be balancing a little bit of like getting really clear on that smaller niche for that program, but then also we need to just think about how we can have your website be more clear and point more toward the kind of people you want to work with, but without going as narrow as the one program. So we'll just be balancing that.
Okay, and you mean on my website, like in terms of, like in the conditions treated page, and then, down the line blogs that are kind of more relevant to those 3 to 5 specialties?
Well, what I mean is that when people land on your homepage, they know like ASAP exactly what you stand for and what you do as a doctor, right? Like,
okay.
Like, because what's on the front page of your website now, your website itself is lovely. Like there's no problem with the way it's formatted. It's just like the things so there's this banner that runs through. I just read the one that says, I listen to your version of health. Like, I would like to just see that, instead of like all the things running through, like, oh, here are the modalities, or here, whatever. Like, let's get clear on what the one thing that's most, and this will get unearthed in the roots of business process, like what you want to be front and center, so that when people come to your page, they're like, oh, this is what Bridget's all about. And I would want to come see her as a doctor, because I also agree with her viewpoint on this. And then below that, you can list the things that you specialize in, just so people know right away, like, okay, is she the kind of person I want to go to? And does she treat the kind of thing that I have?
Okay.
So, and you can list more specialties too. Like, I remember when I was looking for a naturopath, I was like, I want one that like lists ulcerative colitis on her website, because I just want to know, and I skipped a few that didn't. So sometimes it's just about, even if you have a lot of them, just saying it, right? And then you're also still going to have this program where you specialize in this one kind of person, but on the main part of your website, you can just be really specific, so people know that you can, what they can come to you for.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Julie.
Okay. So just for context, I run a nonprofit, Embodied Jewish Learning, and it's been the work I've been doing for over 2 decades. And I've been talking with Julie for years about just a deeper offering that I have to give that's not about Jewish, that's not about learning. The branding is something that came about for a good reason, but there's some transformational experience, deeply supportive, going within experience that I offer when I teach, and that's not really captured in my language or anything. So that's partly why I'm here. And I run the nonprofit and I fundraise, and a big question has been, okay, I have my salary from there and I need to maintain that. But then there's this other piece that's Julie Emden, that's something else that I'm offering. So I have this I have a big community, a global network of teachers that I just founded and created. And I have a whole big list of students from all over the world that I've taught for years and years. And there are basically practitioners and teachers, and I'm serving both communities. And so for the next offering that I'm looking at bringing, I can see there's a depth piece of personal practice that I want to offer people to go deeper and in community, like a small community like this. And I've been doing dance circles for years anyway with groups, but we've never gone to a deeper level. And there's something else that could happen with these communities. It's like 15 to 20 women who gather for a year-long program usually. And so there's that piece, but there's also training and mentoring. And there are 54 teachers, yay, 2 more joined this week in my network. And there's a subset of like 12 of them immediately, I could imagine, who really want advanced training for integrating. What I do is I infuse somatic practices with mystical teachings from the Jewish tradition, but they're universal teachings. But I know Torah and I know Hebrew, and so that's where I do it from. But if I were a Buddhist, if I were a Hindu, if I were a Christian, I think this is what I'd be doing. My work is mind, body, spirit, heart connection. And so what I'm looking at is, I was looking at my yoga teacher's like personal website and her 4th Street Yoga website where I teach. And Julie, we'll talk about this one-on-one of where I offer what I offer. But my clarity is I want to, all my people are at my nonprofit, and I hate saying it that way, but my community organization, I'll say it that way. And so just in determining this idea of the depth and the personal practice, and there is some overlap of those people and my teachers, because my real thing is your personal practice is the foundation for your teaching. So I'm just looking at who is it for? and what is the outcome, and and so that's where I am.
Yeah. That's great questions. And also I know the where to how is question is like the eternal question there too. We'll talk about that. But have we talked about, how like when I did a Anusara yoga training 1,000 years ago, like the first, 6 months, you're just learning everything in depth, the skills. And then if you want, you can go on to teacher training right after that. And so, I guess I'm curious, not that you necessarily use that model, but that there's, like you were saying, the foundation of all of it is like the practice. And so is it possible that you could teach both teachers and practitioners together, like deepening their practice, and then either the teachers go on and get something more, or there's a second layer that you're doing like an additional meeting with the teachers that you're training, like
Right.
it's all one program.
The immersion model, which I actually just talked to my friend who is a teacher in all of my stuff, and she's an Anusara teacher, and she was like, I'm ready for training. I don't want an immersion. She doesn't need or want that, even though that is the foundation for the next level. Like, she is ready to get into mentorship and like, help me design this class. What about this theme? And how do I bring it into this particular sequence? And so I think I want to do both. And
I was just going to ask you that.
I know.
Well, it seems like then you need to, okay, two questions. One is like, what are you feeling, what are you actually feeling more called to do?
Yeah.
Right. Of course, is one.
So I will answer that because someone else just asked me that on my walk this morning. And I really need to mentor and train teachers. Like, my last teacher training was 2014. And I feel like that's what's being, and maybe it's because they're asking, my people are asking for it, but I just feel like it's this piece that has been waiting to happen again. And there are these young new teachers who haven't done my training, and I'm really great at training and mentoring. It's been like since PERG, like
right.
It's always been the thing. I just really love bringing out the unique piece that the person is offering, and it's not a methodology. I'm not training them to do it this specific way, and that's also different in my field. Like, in the Jewish innovative field, there are methodologies like Jewish Studio Project that people are teaching, and I'm not doing that. I'm bringing forth what you are doing. So,
Julie, can I jump in? One quick question though, because it sounds like you have this population of people, and you have a sense for what that population of people want. And so, is there really this pairing up of mentoring and student that is a unique program that you're really targeting, at least as a pilot, to a certain subset of your existing clientele to really beta test, like, is this a new way of doing it, of training everybody and then having almost like TAs, I don't know, because I don't know the industry, but like having them adding their unique flair to the student itself, right? So it's like your teachings, the mentor who has a component of doing their own authentic practice that they're actually using the original student at, who really doesn't have any sense of it all. So that student is getting input from you and from this mentor. And so there's growth going on both sides. Like, do you have enough of a population to be able to create something in that world?
Yeah, I just have to pay them and raise the money to do that.
But building off what Jen was saying, like, yeah, I mean, raising the money is one option, but part of the teacher training could be that they teach classes to your community of students who you also want to serve and make sure you keep serving, right? Because I think is one of your concerns that if you focus so much on the teacher training, what are you going to give to all the practitioners who just like taking cool embodied Jewish yoga classes, right?
Yeah,
so maybe there is a way that like the people you're training, like the platform that they get to practice on, or like is your platform, and then they just get paid part of what comes in, like you split that or whatever, right?
Right. This is bleeding into the whole design of the network, which a lot of people wanted to be in my network, but they're not teachers. And they just want to experience more teaching and mentorship even in the practice.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's that. This is a great next step. Like, how do I leverage all the faculty? I have 8 faculty based on the 8 Shields model.
Mhm.
And I have more that are in the wings that aren't even on faculty. And how do I design it so that I make a lot of money?
Mhm.
I do what I love, and I
Mhm.
can pay people to also be a part of like the mentoring. And like this one particular person I'll mention, and I'll stop now because the time, but like my vision is that when people call me to do something, God willing, we will be in person again. I say, oh, you're in San Francisco. You need to call this person. She's my
Yeah.
person for that community. I want someone all over so I'm not traveling. I'm not driving everywhere to teach all over the Bay Area anymore.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I totally feel like I see like a map that we need to draw of like all these different groups, because it would be a shame not to like bring it all together so that everybody gets something from it and that you do also.
Yeah.
And so I feel like let's dig more into that on our call, because that's
Yeah.
obviously feeds directly into that's your business model, right?
Yeah.
But I love the idea of like finding a way for the two to interweave so that you don't have to fully choose.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm drawing.
Everyone's still getting served.
Yeah. It's like so many different offerings and what's the track and what's the connection.
Yeah, right. And then looking at your existing network.
Okay.
Julie, I was just going to say, I also just wonder if it's this energetic shift of you owning the rest and the nourishment more, that's the way you'll teach from, and train from. So it won't feel like trainer and deep nourished classes, like that the more you connect with that, and and you own that, and you say, this is how I teach. So if you're not aligned, then you don't have to get the teaching, like, that you can feel that even when you train. Kind of.
That's why I'm ready to do it, because I realize I can watch TV and cry and lay in bed all day and still do well.
Yeah. That's awesome. All right, thank you. Okay, who else that hasn't? Marley and Jessica, right? Or wait, yeah, okay, cool. Go for it, Marley. And then Jessica, we also get to talk today too.
Yeah, there's like a lot of different directions I feel like I could go here. One, I think, is this. I think what I mentioned at the beginning is sometimes I get asked to speak
Mhm.
and I just say yes, and then I like figure it out and I create a custom something. Like even today, it was like an hour-long talk on stress management for commercial realtors. That's what I did. Like,
Really?
yeah. And I was like, just the amount of like angst and stress that I experienced just fucking putting this thing on. And then
Number
I
one,
had a proposal out to speak at a high school with 2,000 kids online on resilience in like the end of next month. And some of these things are very much like, one, I can do it,
Mm-hmm.
and there's money.
Mm-hmm.
And then then I just do it, like, and so I don't know how to get out of that pattern. And I don't know if it's a scarcity thing or it's like a what's my lane thing.
Mm-hmm.
And ideally, like, what's my talk thing? Like, this is what I talk about. And ideally, I mean, and I've been saying this for freaking years, that like to have a signature talk or a signature workshop. And I mean, I've given tons of workshops and tons of talks, and none of them I've given more than once.
Really? Wow. Okay.
And I know that is a huge energy leak. And yeah, there's a part of me with this like resilience high school when I'm like, I have friends who could do it and I could refer them out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, actually my friend, but it's like, it's also like $4,000.
Uh-huh. Well, okay. So, oh my gosh, thank you for asking this question. So, a few things. One is that I think it's a combination of scarcity and not totally knowing your lane. So I think it's an interplay of both. And I think that getting clear on your lane, which again, I think you're already clear on, but it's more of like owning, this is my lane. These are my people. These are my entrepreneurs. These are the kind of entrepreneurs they are. These are the stages. These are the people where I can get in front of them. And then, like, that's one piece of it. And then on the other side is like, I mean, I'm curious. I mean, maybe it's scarcity, but is it also that you're just like, you want to help, you want to say yes, like people ask you, so it's like, yeah, I can do that. I want to motivate 2,000 high school students. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, it's like it's always a new challenge, and like it can be fun. But I know that like the first time you give any talk, it's like never going to be as good as like
the 10th time. Yeah. So I mean, I think,
and that's where I get to. I'm like, it's pretty good. Like I know that it's going to make an impact, but
yeah, imagine if you had that
feels
talk.
frustrating at the same time. It's like it's awesome to get these opportunities.
Yeah.
And I love it. And I think that it's like, and I get that it's not an either or, and I appreciate that it's not like I need to say no to anything that's not in 100% alignment. Like I get that that's ultimately the goal, and it's also like I need to keep feeding my business financially, and I can do it, and it's making an impact, and
right.
But
and honestly, I think there's like a third path, kind of middle way. Like I think ultimately, yeah, you want to stay in your lane as much as possible, because that's easier. And then you get, that talk gets better and it gets better and it's better. And maybe you do have 2 versions or 3 versions of it, but you've done it so many times. It's like, it's just easy and it's on, and right. Like, I think that is ultimately the goal. But, I also hear you having fun with new things, and like earning $4,000 for a talk is great, like, so I'm not going to be like, don't do that. I want you to, especially because, you have to think about, like, I think I asked you this my follow-up email to you after our session, was like, where do you stand financially? Like, you're going to be designing something new. It'll be ready to launch in, I don't know, a couple months. And what do you need to be doing in the meantime to make sure that you're feeling like financially good, right? And so how much is coming in? How much more do you want to earn? And then like, just be realistic and be like, you know what, that 4K, I want that. And you know what, the 5 hours of work it's going to take, it's worth it, whatever, but then there might be something else that they're paying you $1,000 and you're like, I'm going to spend like days creating this. And then you might cancel that one. I think it's like case by case, especially given that you're in a transition.
Yeah.
And that like, I would go by like, how good does this feel? Like, will it be fun? And will it be relatively easy to do? And how much are they paying me? And like, I think you go through that list, and maybe there's a couple you cancel, and there's probably a couple that you don't, because, I don't know, how much work do you have to spend on that one with the teenagers?
I mean, like, I would say like at least 5 hours, probably, at least. I ruminate more than I need to on things like that. But yeah, like I can do it. I think part of it, and I don't know if it's like the fear, part of it's probably like the fear of fucking it up, or the failure, or like looking bad of it not being good. It's like, holy shit. Like, and it's just, I'm not in their world of like, don't talk to high schoolers, right? So it's like, as far as that's, I mean, like, so there's part of that apprehension for sure. Like, ooh.
And I mean, I think that just speaks to like, well, they're not your niche, they're not your people. If you were like doing that work with high schoolers regularly, you would know how to get into their heads. But like when I don't know, I see 4K in 5 hours, and I'm like, if you need to generate some money, like, that seems like, keep that one,
Yeah. I mean,
like,
yeah, some of the other, I think that it's being mindful of not just saying yes. And I think ultimately, I think one of the goals is, with some of these talks or opportunities that I have, like, once it's like, this is my talk, where can I share this? And the talk leads to something else.
Right, exactly. So it's like, once you're clear, like we talked about this for a minute, I think, in our call, but it's like, okay, if you're really clear on which kind of entrepreneur is your audience and like what you're delivering to them, and you have the talk, then it's like, okay, who are the adjacent coaches and consultants and people that have a similar audience, but where your work doesn't really overlap that much? And, I told Marley, even like, oh, if Marley's work is around like people becoming like full embodied, magnetic, energized leaders, because sorry for the words, but you know what I mean?
I know that's what is it called?
Well, I was thinking energy of leadership, and then I got this brainstorm that was like all in, something about going all in. But anyways, I can share that with you later. But yeah, just like, maybe does Marley come and teach at groups like this, or does she come and teach at groups other kind of where there's a business, there's a coaching, there's people who have businesses, but they're not being taught that by me, right? So then that's exactly why niching is like so powerful, because you define your specialty in your audience, and you're like, where are my people? And then you make friends with the people who are in front of those people, and you get in front of those people through the people that you make friends with, essentially,
Right. And then I
So-
think that's the piece that's missing, which is why I'm like creating all of this stuff. And
right, you don't have the filter yet.
there's no like, yep, that's my lane. I'm just like, sure, I'll do that.
Luckily, the first thing we're going to do is module 5, create your lane.
Yes, I need to create my lane.
And then I would say go back through that list of all these speaking engagements and look at are there a couple you might want to bag on? Is that okay? Can you pass it on to someone else?
Yeah,
and which ones are really worth it? Because like, hey, why not?
Right. And I think that there could be some where I think what I know to be true for me as far as like action taking and motivation is like, oh shit, I'm talking to this group on such and such day. I'm gonna give this talk to that group, right? As far as like, and I know that we're not quite there yet, but as far as like, okay, I have the framework and I have enough that I can like, can I have audiences to play with this?
Yeah.
So like seeing it, there's like 2 Rotary clubs I'm speaking at next month, and I'm like, what did I even tell them that I was going to talk about? I have no idea.
Right, but you could test out some material with them, right?
Yeah, like test 1 2.
Totally. Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, and then I mean, ultimately I'm excited to get feedback from the group about some of the like stuff that we talked about, the magnetic leadership
Or the energy of leadership.
the energy of leadership framework, all of that.
Yeah. Well, and once you do modules 5 and 6, and then get Casey in on that too, and we'll do some like messaging brainstorming and stuff. So
I dig it. Cool.
Awesome. Jessica, I want to just make sure. Yeah, I want to make sure that Jessica has a chance too.
Yeah, I'm. Where am I at? I'm just I'm feeling like I'm in the midst of a transition professionally. I've been doing a primary care naturopathic medical practice. I bought my practice 5 or 6 years ago. It was a great way for me to just get some experience. 1, being a doctor, and 2, managing a business. It felt like a continued residency program for me. And it's been great, but I'm not in my joy. And so I've been finishing this. I'm getting certified in something called focusing oriented technique. It's a somatic based experiential mindfulness approach to helping people kind of sort stuff out using their intuition. And so I'm using that in my practice, and I love it. And I feel like that's what I'm really called to do primarily, with some doctoring. And so sorting out, and so it's been fun to play with that. So I am feeling a little overwhelmed right now as far as Nourished. I'm excited about it, but I decided to sign on like right after the retreat. I didn't really have the intention. And so I'm reading the materials and getting very excited, but also kind of not quite in the headspace this week. If that makes sense.
Sure.
I'm just going to be fully transparent.
Totally. Well, I'm glad we're ending with you, because that's totally fine. And it's the very beginning, and we actually have a call in half an hour, right?
I'm looking forward to that.
I do meet with everybody in the first couple of weeks for this very reason, to like kind of help you see not just the lay of the land of the program, but like what your kind of pathway through it is.
Yeah.
So, we'll just get to dig in more into like where you're headed, and then like what that could look like in your business and your business model. And I'll send you like goals and things like that.
Yes.
So we'll do clarifying on that call. And then also just like, there's a little bit of just holding faith too about being in a process, which I can feel all of you understand that. And there's going to be moments when you're like, what the fuck? I don't want to be here. Why am I doing this? You know, just like any program, you like get partway through and you're like, what? And then you just like, you kind of get over it and you keep going. So like, there's going to be those moments, and then there's going to be the moments you feel stuck. And what I can say is like, you know, reach out, you know,
Yes.
like reach out when you're stuck, or you're like, we talked about this morning in our call, like if you need an assignment, if you need prioritization help, like reach out, you know, like ask on a call, like help me get my list straight again, you know, like I know I'm, you know, like, or help me figure out what my next move is. And I'm very good at prioritization and, you know, helping you figure out what's most important to move forward. So you can ask here, you can ask in Slack. If it feels like really big, you just set up one of the private appointments, or, you know, move it up and be like, I have too many things, it's overwhelming. Because that happens to everybody pretty much.
Yeah. Well, and I am so excited. Like I felt very inspired last week, and this week I just have some, like I'm giving a presentation tonight with I also co-teach mindfulness and nature classes, which I'm hoping to bring into my practice. And so I'm doing a presentation tonight on that, and not so much, it's fun. Anyway, one of the things I'm realizing is, and paying very close attention to, is how to carve out the space to dream into the vision. Because when like the last few weeks prior to this week, I've had some time to do that, and it just feels so important. And so sealing up those leaks, creating big spaces each week so that I can do this work. I'm very committed to it.
Yeah, totally. Just putting the blocks in your calendar. You know, there's an optional module 4 is kind of an optional calendaring planning module. So if you want a kind of a guide toward creating a self-care first schedule, like my whole motto with this is like, look at your calendar and put your vacations in first, and then whatever your things you need to do monthly, weekly, daily to take care of yourself.
Yes.
Right.
And I'm going on vacation on Friday, which is exciting.
Awesome. Where are you going?
The Methau Valley in the northeast Cascades to do some cross-country skiing.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, awesome. I mean, you know, but just put the personal important stuff in first, and then build the work stuff around that. And then inside of work, it's like your creative process is important. You can't do the big creative work in between clients for 15 minutes. Nope. Like, it's just not going to happen, right?
No.
So I just have like every other Wednesday after on the weeks that I'm not the main coach, that whole rest of the day is just blocked off for like Julie create. Like I don't do any appointments on those days, or maybe I make an exception once in a while, right? But like that's my creative work time. I need to do meeting or so planning, big picture planning and strategizing. So yeah, I mean I totally support you in putting those blocks in your calendar.
Yeah, it's happening. I've got it. It's coming.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Well, and I'll talk to you very shortly.
Yes.
So, is there anything else before we wrap up? Any other quick thoughts or questions?
You're all awesome.
I agree.
In case someone has not told you that yet today, you're doing a great job.
Energetic leader.
You can always count on me for a pep talk.
I have to say, every time I'm walking around my house, and I made different ones of the stickies, I sit on the toilet every day. I get out of the shower, I'm like big on there, but I was seeing all your green ones. I did them in my own way and could feel it embodied. So
Marley's in my house with me.
Well, honestly, when I'm looking at it, smiling, and then getting physically calm, I actually am seeing our group of like, right, I know this, like I know putting things up, I do that, but there was something about after last week, I'm like, oh, just do that, and the different phrases we had in that. So I'm appreciative of the group and all different places in it that we're at in our business. And I would love everybody's, I know sometimes you're like, I don't want you're in a place where you don't want emails or newsletters, but for this pod, I
Put
would
them in,
like to
yeah,
actually,
put them in Slack. Start a thread in Slack, and then everybody, you can put your email, your websites there, and then it'll live there permanently, because obviously this chat disappears.
Yes. And also,
So, and then next week, so I'll meet with all of you before we meet with Casey and Caitlin, I believe, hopefully, and I'll explain at the beginning of the call how those calls go, but it's a little different. So, super fun. Don't miss it. Bring your marketing questions. And I will talk to y'all soon. If you have any questions, just ping me in Slack. I check at least once a day.
thank you.
Okay, take care, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.